so many people, when you talk to them about pest control, they think, oh, it's about, they want to start asking me questions about bugs, all the time. Like, oh, hey, I got this bug or I got that bug. We always kind of go back to it's more about the people than it is the bugs.
This is the PMP Industry Insider Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we take a look at what is changing in the pest and lawn industries, and we take you to the front lines for those that are driving those changes. I'm Donnie, Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has my two favorite companies, Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. And with me is a Florida resident. I just have to say that because he gets upset if I say he's a Jersey resident. I think he's afraid the IRS is going to come after him. But Mr. Dan Gordon, Dan, we'd like to say good morning.
Hey, good morning, Dan Gordon, PCO Bookkeepers, M&A specialists. We focus on CFO services for the pest control industry, as well as exit planning services. And I'm going to get all of this right because I'm reading it. Sponsors, before we dive into today's episode, let's get a quick shout out to our sponsors. For anybody who's interested in marketing, that would be Coalmarch by WorkWave, offering marketing services specifically designed for pest and lawn companies. Whether you're looking to grow or prepare your business for sale, Coalmarch can help you get there. And for those looking for pest control specific insurance, that would be PestSure, providing insurance products tailor-made for the pest control and lawn industries. PestSure understands the risks of our business and offers coverage that fits your needs. And Donnie will be happy about this. If you're interested in joining one of our peer groups, and we've got, probably 60 or 70 people in them right now, they are facilitated by David Billingsley, who is our Cracker Jack facilitator. And if you're interested, take a look at the website, pmpindustryinsider.com/peer groups, or go back and listen to episode 136 for more information. And today...
Hang on, before you introduce our guest, because I just have to...
What did I screw up?
Just for those of you listening, facilitator is a new word. You just have to look it up. It's facilitator. All right, continue now.
Wait, who wrote that? Okay.
All right, keep it going. Now we can
right. Yeah. So anyway, today we're excited to welcome back Emily Thomas Kendrick and Tim Pollard from Exterminators in Atlanta. We first talked to them, and it seems like yesterday, but I guess it was almost 3 years ago, in episode 66, Motivating Your Team Through Recognition. So Emily's the CEO of Arrow. Her grandparents founded the company in 1964. She represents the third generation of the family and began her career at Arrow in 1998 after graduating from Vanderbilt. And she has served a variety of positions throughout the company and eventually being named CEO in 2010. Tim is president and COO of Arrow. He joined the company as a senior vice president of sales in 2009, was promoted to COO in 2012. Before that, he served in various sales, marketing, leadership roles with Dow Chemical Company. Welcome back, Emily and Tim. Did I screw anything up, or did
No, you did great, Dan.
That was,
that
was
great to be back, guys.
Thank you. It's great to be back with you guys.
Now, if you remember, you brought a onesie for me the last time, and
wait, for you or for who? I want to know.
Need a new
I don't
one?
know. I think it was for. Yeah, I do. I do.
Oh,
I wore that one out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
Yes.
Donnie, I did quite a bit of talking. Why don't
You did.
we, let's see, Arrow is having its 60th anniversary. Congratulations, an amazing achievement.
60 years young, baby.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think your grandparents would say if they could see Arrow today? Over 3,400 people, 184 offices, 12 states doing $413 million in revenue.
Wouldn't that be awesome? I think about that a lot. I look at Dad every once in a while, and I'm like, especially on these big incentive trips, and I'm like, what do you think Mimi and Papa would think? I mean, I just think, obviously, I think they'd be so proud and amazed with what we and the team have done over these many decades. I think they would be extremely proud of first and foremost, the culture we've still got going on and the type of folks that have chosen to come to the company and stay at the company all these years, they would love that, because one of their big things when they started the company back in the mid 60s was they wanted to create a company that had a very strong family culture, whether you were related or not, and that was really important to them, as was bringing other professionals to the company. They would just be blown away by that. I think obviously they'd love to see, the financial success. I remember when I first got to the company, my dad was doing a spinoff in an area of Atlanta, and I'll never forget being at lunch with my dad and grandmother. I called her Mimi, and now she was a child of the Depression. You got to remember this, okay? And she looked at my dad and she goes, "You'll go broke. I tell you, you'll go broke. You'll go broke." And I was like, "Oh my God, what does she say?" And after lunch, my dad goes, "Oh, she always says that. Don't worry about it. She always says that." But no,
You need some
I
yin
just
and
think
yang for sure.
yeah, right. Seriously.
Mhm.
I just think they'd be so proud, and just, I mean, all the feels. I think they'd also love how we are so passionate about, not just at our home office in Atlanta, but throughout our, over 185 offices throughout the country, how we lean in so hard with our local communities. That's something that my grandparents were really big in. And we've been able to do that not just in our hometown of Atlanta, but throughout the 12 states and thousands of communities we operate in. They were really, really big on giving back to the community. And I think they would be really proud that we continue to do that and have taken that to a whole nother level,
Emily, I will tell you right now, I totally get it. So my grandma, I didn't call her Mimi, I called her grandma. My grandma would save aluminum foil, and I'd be like, "Grandma, why you got all this
Oh
aluminum
yeah.
foil in your drawer?" She's like, "Well, we may use it again." So I totally, and she was from the Depression as well. God rest her soul. But listen, you guys are killing it. Like, legitimately, you're killing it. You got a
Oh,
team of 3,400 people, 184 offices. And, we said we started with 60th anniversary, but 413 million in 60 years is an amazing feat. I mean, so you guys, obviously, if we were in front of an audience, I would make them all stop, because it deserves a round of applause. And so here you go. You guys absolutely
oh,
deserve that.
stop. Our
But
folks
I
are
will
doing such a
say,
good
but I will
job.
say this, obviously with scale, there's new challenges, and I see this in my business a lot, which is where we kind of get the mousetrap figured out, and then we go to another
Mhm.
level, and it's like sometimes we have to start over again. I have a question. How do you guys keep kind of this family business feeling, especially as the company scales? And obviously, you guys are in different markets, and I'm sure there's other challenges in different markets. Like, how are you able to kind of keep that feel? Because I think that's probably the most important part, right? Is the
Yeah.
culture of just how do you make sure that everyone's on the same page and that they feel like, yeah, this is home, right? It's just not a large company where I'm just a number.
Yeah. Hey, Donnie, I'll jump
Donnie,
in
you nailed
and
it.
yeah, I'll jump in and let Emily as well. But the interesting thing about that number too, I mean, it sounds huge, right? You hear that 413 million, and it's big. And one of the things that we realized is 3 years ago when we were on this call, we were doing 300 million. So in 3 years, we've added $100 million in revenue and 1,000 new team members, which just seems unbelievable when you think about it, and say it in that way. But we have to be very intentional to make sure we try to keep a small company feel within the larger company. And if you think about that, and when we just added a new service center last week through a merger, and if you look at our average service center size now, it's about 2.2 million. And
Mhm.
that's important to us. That's super important because it keeps it a smaller feel at the service center level and allows us to feel more like a family versus having, a mega service center, and where
Right.
you could do that, right? And that's
Hmm.
that's a model, right? You could have, hey, we're going to have a $10 million service center, in Metro. We're going to have four $10 million service centers versus, the ones we have now that only average two. But part of that is that feel, and it also creates so many opportunities for us to recruit and retain top talent as well.
I'm glad you hit on that, creating the opportunities, Tim, because we talk about that all the time when we go into a merger. For example, like last week, was that last week or the week before? Anyway, when we talk about the numbers, you go, God, that sounds so big that it still sounds big to me, and I'm living it here. But it really does look like that average size office of right now it's about $2.27 million, about 20 folks. And again, people ask us all the time, well, why don't, in Metro Atlanta or Orlando, why don't you just have like a mega center? Well, for example, throughout the metro area of Atlanta now, we have over 30 offices. That would be 29 less managers, 29 less office managers, 29 less supervisors and support folks, to support the operations of the company. And being able to offer a company that is going to continually have more and more opportunity. I always tell people, like in Lafayette, Louisiana recently, I said, we have more opportunities than we have people to fill those opportunities. And I think that's been a big piece of why we've had some folks either jump companies, or really even recently we've seen jump industries completely, coming into the pest control industry where they never thought they'd be. No one ever thinks they'll be in the pest control industry. Everybody always has an interesting story of how we got here. But that piece about being able to offer so much opportunity, whether you want it in operations or support side, et cetera, to me has been a huge piece of our success and being able to keep that culture feel, that family culture.
One thing too, Donnie and Dan, I would add in there is, we always are thinking about too how to engage our team and inspire and those kind of things, right? And to keep it more of a family feel. And there's some things we do that a lot of people would say are probably pretty corny and cheesy. And they probably are, right?
And we're cheesy.
Yeah, it's what we do.
Cheesy. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. Like, every October, of course, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we do a thing called a pink out. And we, set up outside at our home office and have a lot of our vendors come, food and all kinds of our healthcare vendors. And I mean, we even have axe throwing. I mean, who doesn't like axe throwing? That's just, and it's really safe. You don't have to worry about it. You just have to sign a
I'm
big
not
waiver.
sure Pesher knew that, but
Yeah. If you're on the pitching side, not the receiving side, right?
Yeah. But we like doing a lot of that. I mean, we do like funny dress up days. Somebody will come walking through the hall and they're all dressed up kind of weird, and you're like, wait, what day is it? What are you supposed to be? But that kind of stuff, I think, really does inspire and encourage engagement.
So just as a 100 million and 1,000 employees in 3 years. So yeah, you can, it's all about the culture, but what are the mechanics? Do you have a playbook for opening the offices, or that's a logistics nightmare to do that quick. How does that work?
I'm going to let Tim talk more about that, but first and foremost, I'm going to tell you our operations leaders do such a phenomenal job of this, and they do it all year long, because we normally open, for example, a new spinoff on the quarter, and they have gotten so damn good at this.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and Dan, you're right. It's a lot, and it's spread out amongst a lot of great leaders within the company. So it doesn't just fall on one group. Now, granted, when we go in with a merger, there's a special group there that handles a lot of that logistically, but then ultimately that goes to that local area, to that senior VP of operations, that region VP of operations, and then ultimately to the service center level leadership. and they're just really good at bringing that in and very quickly, kind of working that into an aero culture. And you're right, it's a lot of work, but it's something we've been able to do successfully. Sometimes, some years, and Emily will have these exact numbers. I mean, we have opened, 12 to 15 service centers in a year. And now other years we may only open 6 or 8 service centers. And some of that is obviously it's all by design, but in some years we say, hey, this year we really want to invest and we're going to go after it and we're going to have a larger year. The following year we might say, hey, this year we don't want to go as
Yeah.
much. We want to pull back a little bit. Same strategy, but maybe we only do 5 or 6.
Yeah. I mean, like I think it was 3 years ago. Tim, correct me if you remember. I want to say
Mhm.
we opened like 16, and I'm making this up, but let's just say like 8 were organic spinoffs and 8 were through mergers. Last year, again, by design, we turned down the dial a little bit. We did 5 through mergers and organic spinoffs. This year, we're on track. We've already done 8, and I think we'll have 2, maybe 3 more. So we're looking at maybe of them. But we've our folks, again, whether it's on operations or the support side, have gotten really good at it. And I think one of the things we do that's so important, Tim, is we always do a post-mortem, whether it be on a merger or a spinoff, and we go, or even we do it for our incentive trips too, and we go, okay, what worked really well, and now we've been doing this long enough that we've got a pretty good playbook, but sometimes, you need to change that playbook up, or other times, things aren't cookie cutter. So different things come up and, hey, where could we get better? What worked really well? I think that's been fantastic.
That's awesome. So Arrow's known for throwing some fantastic company events, which I've attended a few of them, and they are fantastic and they are motivational and they are terrific. Tell us about those, what role they play in the success, how you recommend a smaller company get involved, because you guys definitely spend a lot of money on those things. Maybe you're a smaller company, you don't have those resources. What's your recommendation? So.
I'll jump in, Dan. And listen, that's part of our culture, right? The incentive trips, and like you said, you've witnessed some of those firsthand, and you know how impactful they can be. But it really goes back to Emily's dad, our chairman of the board and owner, Joe Thomas, and he really started that recognition culture, and we've just continued it. We've grown it, and Dan, I can remember some of the early trips when we were obviously not near as large as we are now. And we literally had 5 winners, achievers on a trip. And we were in
We were in
Chicago and
Chicago at that
sitting at a
steakhouse.
table at Ditka's restaurant in Chicago,
That's
right? So
Great
I'll
steakhouse.
never, yeah, I mean, it's a great place, right? But
And
you
somebody had their baby with them, like
somebody had
like
their
a
baby
new
with them,
baby, a little baby.
brand new baby.
Was they wearing a onesie?
I didn't
I
have my
was.
era onesies yet.
But now you think about, that was maybe 15 years ago, right? We were still, and
Mhm.
now we have just hundreds and hundreds. I mean, at the last one, I know, Dan, we were recently talking about, I mean, we had 700 to 800 people at one of these events and how it just continues to grow. But yet we see that as one of the best investments we can make. And we want to continue to invest in our team. I mean, they're out there all year just really working their tails off to make this thing happen. And for them to be able to go on a trip like that and to bring a guest, it's really special.
Yeah.
But you talk about, at our size, these events they've gotten pretty darn big. And I mean, I remember, if you go back to even my grandfather, I've got some old photos in my office, and there is one picture I'm thinking of in particular where it's my grandfather and 4 other guys, and they're all holding up fish like on a string. And my grandfather would he'd have folks come up to Lake Lanier, which is just north of Atlanta, and go fishing for a day, bring up their families up there and do like a picnic, right? Well, and then over the years, he started going, okay, well, let's go down to Crystal River, Florida. And all the guys would go down there. Now, remember, this is like 5 people, 8 people, 10 people. Well, over the years, when I first got to Aero in 98, there was something called a guys trip. It was called a guys
That's
trip
politically correct.
because it was just that. It was a guys trip, and it had gotten bigger, and they all still went to Crystal River. And I remember saying to my dad after like a year or two, I was like, Dad, I hear the stories when y'all get back from your guys trip. I don't think this is sustainable. and
Right.
and
Maybe not wise.
we kind of retooled them. We retooled them over time. But I'll tell you, it doesn't have to be this big, grand thing at some crazy, geographic location. Honestly think it can be as simple as just taking someone and their spouse to dinner, or just doing a picnic for the day and having people bring their kids, and then making a big deal about their mom or dad in front of their spouse or their kids. I think that goes just as far. I mean, because people will say, well, you took these folks to Mexico or whatever. I get it. It looks like a lot. It is a lot. But I'm telling you, I think even just that dinner, or make it a big deal about somebody in front of their kids and their spouse at a local park for a picnic, I think it goes just as far. I like to be recognized in front of the people I love. I think y'all probably do too. When someone compliments you, Dan, and in front of your wife, Kara, I mean, it feels good. And I think people really like that. I'm not saying money's not important and things like that, but I think people want to be patted on the back and want to be appreciated, especially in front of the people they love.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
I mean,
terrific.
I was going to say for, even a triangle, which, for our listeners, we are a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of Aero, maybe even another fraction in there. But I will say same thing when we first started, because I started with nothing. I remember we would go to a restaurant and we would all, we'd have lunch or whatever. Now we do 2 events a year. We do a summer barbecue, and we get inflatables and dunk tanks, and it's a ton of fun. And then we do our kickoff party, which, by the way, they're so funny because if you know me, I'm very flamboyant and I love doing karaoke, which means I freaking hate it. But we go to this kickoff party and I sing in front of everyone. And of course, other people get up, and it's just a great time. And so if you're listening to this, there are absolutely things that you can do. I'm not telling you need to sing karaoke, and no, I will not do it at any event. So don't ask me, but unless you come to our kickoff party. Other than that. But I mean, just point is that there needs to be something. And I think just like what you said, and I can just echo that, is any kind of recognition in front of peers, especially in front of family, I think goes a long way. So
okay, I got to know, what's your go-to song?
You know what?
What genre?
Okay, so first of all,
you say you hate it, but I almost wonder if you don't.
So here's the deal.
He doesn't, or he wouldn't have said it. So
oh my gosh. Anyway. So I will tell you, I loathe country music. However, the old country music I do like. And so last year, my daughter, who's now in college, worked for us, and we sang Country Roads, because we used to sing it in the truck all the time together. We would belt it out, we would be driving down the road, and we would sing that song. And so we did it in front of everyone together. So I didn't actually do it by myself.
That's awesome.
Before that. And
that's
so it's
awesome.
just stuff
I love
that. It's just
it.
a ton of fun. So we did it together, and it was a lot of fun. So let's talk about you guys' fiscal kickoff this year. So you had a theme called Talk to Me, because it's a people business. And the question I have is kind of, can you just walk me through what that theme means? And then the other part is, do you always have a theme? And if so, why did you choose it? And what's it going to be this year?
Well, I'm going to let Tim take you through this one, because our theme this year, Tim Pollard came up with this theme and flushed it out, got our speaker, did such a fantastic job. I was actually on a plane with him flying to, I think we were flying to Scotland, Tim, to not play golf. But
Come
no, just
on.
kidding. And we had just done our kickoff meeting for the year before. Okay. So it's like August. We've already kicked off the fiscal year. I mean, in my mind, like we're not going to be thinking about the next kickoff for like 6 months. And then I'm going to be like, okay, what are we going to do for our theme? Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Tim's over. I'm watching like a Real Housewife episode on my laptop, and yes, it's cheesy. I mean, I just wanted to just zone out. And Tim is next to me reading like a business book, right? And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And it was a book by who was going to end up being our speaker for the next year. So Tim, walk them through how you just like a ninja blew this one out this past year.
Yeah, well, sometimes it takes certain people longer than others. So I have to get a head start, right? I have to get way
Whatever.
in advance and get it going so I can keep up. But, I want to kind of go back to the theme as well and the talk to me because it's a people business. One of the things that we have communicated and trained on at Arrow is that communication is the oxygen of execution. And we believe that wholeheartedly, that it all comes down to communication. And one of the things we were taught early on by some of our speakers and our friends in the industry that come to speak with us, Mark Miller and Randy Gravett, is that communication is the oxygen of execution. So that's how we kind of went down this talk to me route. And then the book that we associated with it is named Talk to Me. And then, of course, the tagline, because it's a people business, that's something we've said in pest control forever. So many people, when you talk to them about pest control, they think, oh, they want to start asking me questions about bugs, all the time. Like, oh, hey, I got this bug or I got that bug. And usually we always kind of go back to, it's really about the people. Okay. It's more about the people than it is the bugs. Now, granted, you got to be able to do your job, right? But if you can handle the people, you're going to be very successful. But anyway, the book, Talk to Me, is written by a lady named Kim Bearden. And I got connected to Kim. I serve as chair on a private Christian school board in Atlanta. And Kim was the first middle school principal at this school. And I got connected to her through that. And now she is the co-founder of a school called Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta that is a very unique school. And I'll let Emily tell you more about that. She's all the time following them on Instagram, and they just do some really cool stuff. So I would encourage folks to check that out. It's a great school. But anyway, got connected to her through this. The book was great. It was really all about communication, how to communicate effectively, and not just verbally, but like through emails and text messages and all the ways that we do it now. And, thinking about what your motivation is when you're communicating with someone and, what you're conveying or not conveying. And it was great. And we said, man, this will be really good for people professionally and personally to be able to get this information. And so we were able to do that and have her here. And, these themes, we do, it's a new theme every year. We always have one, but they're not just one and done. These are, we build off of these. These are building blocks, right? These are things that we say, hey, this is not just important for this year. This is important for every year. And so every year we have all those themes. And sometimes during the year, we'll refer to themes that are 5 or 7 or 8 years old, because they're building blocks, really, that we're trying to get folks to really think about throughout their day-to-day.
So we will put on our show notes a link to your webpage that has the fiscal kickoff and explains exactly what Ron Clark Academy is. And so look for that. Question for you. So, I mean, how do you get the inspiration for this? Where do you find that? So, you had to bring that book on the airplane. So where did you get the book? Where
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll let Emily jump in here as well. But, like I said, I got connected through the school board and got introduced to Kim and got the book. And, a lot of it comes through our interactions, like the speaker or keynote that we're looking at for next year, which will be next August, we've already arranged and got reserved and booked for that. It's Emily met through her association with YPO. So Emily, I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, just to go back real quick again to the Ron Clark Academy, I think I'm good. I'm in a hotel room. Knock, knock, knock.
Always, never fails.
My sister and I are like, why don't we have more ambition to set up an app for hotels to use to schedule cleaning? But anyway, I digress. So go back to, you say, well, how did Tim know about that book, right? He had mentioned Kim Bearden and Emily. They helped co-found, something called the Ron Clark Academy, and I'm like, Tim, go on Instagram immediately and follow this school, because I heard about that school and this group I'm in, Young Presidents Organization, YPO, years before that. And and when I say the school does things differently, like there's a dragon that's hanging off the side of the school, and like you walk in and it's like a castle. And, I'm sitting in school when I'm a kid trying to like memorize stuff. They got kids up on dancing on desks to help remember things. And I mean, it's just a whole thing. And then Tim's like, oh, well, let's look into this more. And they kind of happen like that, very organically. But like our speaker for next year, Molly Fletcher, I met Molly Fletcher in YPO. She's a fantastic speaker. She's written several books. Molly, when I met her, was she basically had branded herself as like the female Jerry Maguire of the sports world. She's a sports agent. You don't see many female sports agents, and she's awesome. She played tennis up in Michigan. She grew up in a house of brothers. Like, she was made for this, and she was a sports agent, did all sorts of like high profile golf, baseball players, etc. And in the middle of her career, like right after I'd met her, she's like, I think I'm going to reinvent my whole career. And I'm like, really? Because you seem to be crushing it. And she's like, yeah, I got these three girls, kids, and I need to be available for them more. And damned if she didn't become a highly in-demand speaker. I mean, she goes and speaks in front of thousands of people and just absolutely crushes it. But the main point is, these things really tend to come about very organically each and every year. Years ago, we were really leaned in hard on our customer experience, and it was just something we were talking a lot about. And we came up with a theme. I don't remember the tagline, Tim, but own the moment. Remember?
Yes,
Own the
I do.
moment, and
Yeah.
harken back to Disney at the time, and their whole charge to their folks is, these people put so much money and resources into coming, to Disney. We got to own each and every moment, because, each little moment can make or break the whole experience. But they come about pretty darn organically, usually.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk, talking about growth. What do you guys, what's on the horizon? Obviously, just 100 million in 3 years is an amazing track. What do you guys have planned for 2025? I mean, is it still kind of a combination of M&A and organic? Is it, what exactly are you guys looking at? Because obviously, I really like what you guys said at the beginning, which is it's about creating opportunities for more managers, more office managers, those types of things. What do you guys have kind of in your playbook looking ahead?
So the current fiscal year we're basically in the middle of it. And this year I mentioned that last year we did 5 new offices through mergers and organic spinoffs, turned up the dial this year, said we're going to do double that. And we really turned up, especially on the merger side. And we are continuing to look to do the same thing this next year. So for us, a lot of our business, not all of it, but a healthy amount, is driven by residential real estate. And the past, what I'll call 18 months, we've really faced some pretty strong headwinds there. And they weren't unexpected. It wasn't like DEFCON 1 or anything, but it definitely, we went from, double-digit growth to single-digit, which is fine and probably not a bad thing. The year prior to that, we had grown at 14%. And to be honest, for a company our size, that's just getting a little
That's a
over our
lot of growth.
skis
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be able to do it well.
Mhm.
Things start falling through the cracks, start making mistakes, and that's just a little too much. But I would tell you for the 25-26 fiscal year, I am personally hoping to get back over 9%. It's just me. It's just I would love to get back to that double digit, maybe 10%. I don't know that I see real estate turning around that fast. It's just it takes what it takes, and I think we'll continue to see interest rates come down. But I just don't think it's just going to be like one day, real estate all of a sudden just explodes again. Um, but I'll let you jump in too, Tim.
Yeah, and I'm just, talking about our plan. We're gonna, we've had the same strategy really strongly for the last 15, 20 years. And, we're going to continue that. We want the majority of our growth to be organic. That's the healthiest growth that there is. But we're also going to complement that with some mergers, in the 2 to 3% range is where we want it. And that's what we're going to do. One of the kind of catchphrases I hear now talked about on the NFL. Watching NFL, I hear coaches and others talk about complementary football. And I always thought, well, what are they talking about? Complementary football. Well, they're talking about, hey, your offense needs to complement your defense, right? Or your defense should complement your offense. In other words, everybody is playing complementary. And, we kind of see that in our business as well, right? You need to be complementary of what you're doing with your strategy, right? You need to have multiple prong approach, but they need to complement each other. You don't need to just focus on one or the other. They're both very important. Organic's very important. We fund all of our own mergers. We don't take any outside investment, and we monitor every dollar we spend, right? It's important. And we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking of the NFL and your
Uh-oh.
organic growth, so tell us. So Donnie's a big digital guy, right? He had owned Comarch, and so going forward, organic growth is difficult. Digital is difficult. You do sponsorships with a couple of NFL teams, some MLB teams. What is what does your marketing look like in the future?
Yeah. Well, Dan, thanks
Tim, I'll
for
let you
bringing that
get us
up.
started
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I mean, we got on the sports partnership thing, gosh, maybe 12, 15 years ago. And,
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys, Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta Hawks, just some of the ones obviously in the markets that we're in. And now we have 58 sports partnerships. And it's amazing how they just continue to grow. And what you learn is that industry is kind of like pest control industry. It's a small group that all know each other. And so they get to talking. And, we have a lot of folks asking us to do things, even in markets we're not in yet. But we obviously like investing in that. We're going to continue that. Of course, digital and billboards and radio. I mean, we use every available media that's out there, including our community giving and, doing local events in the community. I mean, it is a multiple pronged approach. And, we always talk about that we want people, to see us or hear us and, kind of build that brand, right? And then you obviously where people go now, they're going to go to the internet and they're going to go and try to find you. And that's, obviously no rocket science there, right? That's the model. That's what you're looking to do. And so we're gonna continue to invest in that in a big way.
I'm interested in I don't know if it'll be a fit for us. I would um expect our marketing team will make a recommendation, but I've mentioned to them that I'm kind of interested in looking at some, I'll just call it radio advertising for lack of a better word, but like podcast radio advertising. So for myself, I don't ride down the road in my car listening to AM or FM radio. Even on satellite radio, I get irritated with ads. I just get irritated, and I don't like to listen to them. But I've been listening to some podcasts, and I don't know, there might be an opportunity with some adding podcasts to kind of our marketing rotation. I'd be interested. Donnie, do you do any advertising on podcast?
We don't do podcasts yet. However, we are absolutely with influencers, and
nice.
Yeah, so
I think that's so smart.
But we've done it with influencers. We've done it in a few of our markets where we'll offer some sort of service, and then they will review us with their audience. And it's hard. That's a long play. It's hard to say, how much of that has paid out. I will tell you, though, we do get folks that say, well, such and such referred me, and we kind of know who that is, and so those have been helpful. But yeah, I mean, we haven't done the podcast route, but we've certainly done the influencer route. And I'm not certain I know, is one more effective than the other? I don't know, because I haven't done the podcast side yet. So.
Yeah.
I think B2C, I think home services, it's kind of difficult because it's not a group that people like tune into, right? Whereas, okay, we're all pest control people, owners and whatnot. So, or, we're into skateboarding or skiing or golf. That's something that you listen to. So it's kind of difficult to push it that way unless you're just going to do a straight up ad in the podcast.
Well, there are absolutely platforms out there that you can use that identify these influencers, and you can start segmenting based on their audience. And so those are pretty effective if you are looking to do that. Not that I want to jump into that kind of conversation now, but going back to what you're asking. Yes, we do.
No, we've used some influencers and had some success a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But the podcast thing was on my mind because with the recent election, I've read some articles where people, they talk about traditional media and then, newer media, et cetera. And we're talking about some of the strategies that different candidates used. And one was through these podcasts. And when I say that's a big word, that's a big universe,
Right.
But I thought that was pretty interesting. We're in a period of transformation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny. We should absolutely do a political one, because Dan and I would have so much fun. But we're not going to do that.
but if you think about it, right? So you're interested in politics, right? You're not interested in getting bugs out of your house.
No,
so
you're 100% right, so, Dan.
Right.
Yeah. So,
yeah. But
there's got to be a way to do it. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's what I tell people all the time now, which is, they're like, oh, there's so much more difficult to market now. And I'm like, well, listen, it's not like we have less people. They've not gone anywhere. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like they just didn't say, well, I'm just going to stop consuming media. It's not an issue of it's like, okay, well, they're moving, and you just need to know where they're going. And so I think the podcast and the influencer type. I mean, listen, I don't know that my wife ever gets off TikTok ever. Like, I'm like, she's constantly watching and same thing, like podcasts, like so my point is like, it's not like they're gone anywhere. It's just a different platform. So, well, listen,
you're right.
Emily, you had mentioned Instagram before. Ask Donnie if he even knows how to get on Instagram or TikTok.
Okay, so Tim and I laugh about this all the time because Tim has younger kids. Okay, I have 2 adult stepsons and then grandkids, and whenever they talk to me about TikTok, I was always like, "Oh, whatever." And then Tim starts rolling into the office, and he's like, did you see this on TikTok? And so we kid around all the time. And I'm like, no, I did not see that on the tickety talk. I have not created a TikTok account, but I sense it's coming because everything's on there. Our some of the young people on our marketing team, they know all this stuff, right? And they're like, they come to my office and they're like, we want to do a video to put on the TikTok and I'm like, you're going to put me on the tickety talk, and they think it's so funny, and then they have me do this little thing like da 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 da. I didn't know what they're talking about, and then somebody that night's like, oh my gosh, I saw you on TikTok, and I'm like, what?
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, the tickety talk's coming.
It's one of those things I don't know that I fully agree with, but it doesn't really matter what I think. All that matters is
that's a great way to put it, Donnie.
Does not matter what I think. So, well, listen, I seriously, hats off to you guys. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. This has been an amazing episode. I think our listeners are going to get a lot of wisdom from you guys, and just really appreciate all that you're doing, both in your markets, but also in the industry. You guys are just a great steward in our industry and a great example as far as a company is concerned. Would love to have you on in the future, and just glad that things are going so well for you guys. And just want to give you tons of gratitude for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with our listeners. Dan, anything to add before we finish out here?
No, that about says it all. You guys are terrific, and appreciate you coming on.
Well, y'all are so sweet for having us on again. And I want to thank you guys for what y'all do for the industry, because like I said, every time I listen to y'all's podcast, I learn something new, if not several things. And I think what y'all do helps lift the entire industry. So kudos to y'all, and thank you again. We always love talking to y'all. Y'all are smart guys, and I always walk away with something new.
And guys, I'll just tag on to that and reinforce about the podcast. Over 200 episodes now. So congratulations to you guys. Always really enjoy listening to your podcast. You do an excellent job with it. Thank you for your continued support in the industry and your professionalism. So thank you guys.
Oh, we appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Well, listen, it's been fantastic. Just a reminder, all the resources and topics that we talked about today are going to be available on the podcast website. I'm thinking that I might even do the song Freak Out, because you were talking about the kickoff party before. Yeah. We'll put a link up for it. Yes. It'll be on pmpindustryinsider.com. Just take a look under show notes. And we always appreciate any positive ratings and reviews that you have. If you have complaints or just general complaining in general, we ask that you pass that to Dan. And with that, we'll sign off. We'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.